It's almost a cliche now, isn't it? Seeing these like toddlers with packed schedules.
Mm.
It really makes you wonder, are we pushing kids too hard, maybe too fast?
Well, yeah, and it reminds you of Piaget, the psychologist.
Oh, right. The American question.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
noticed this thing about Americans decades ago,
Yeah.
this eagerness almost to speed up how kids develop.
And it feels so relevant today, maybe even more so.
It really does. And that observation, it's a great way into what we're looking at today.
Totally. Because for this deep dive, we're tackling this really widespread thing, the super competitive nature of childhood, especially in America.
Right.
And our main guide here is the source material you brought in, David Sirlin's Playing to Win.
Yeah, it's a really key piece for understanding how we raise our kids now, particularly, in middle-class America.
So our mission today, basically, is to unpack the big ideas from Sirlin's work. We want to figure out why competitions become so central to childhood, how it actually looks in families' day-to-day lives, and, well, what the bigger picture implications might be.
And Sirlin's work is just so valuable because it's really grounded in actual observation. He spent a lot of time just watching kids.
Doing what?
In those after-school things, chess clubs, soccer teams, dance classes.
And he didn't just watch from afar, did he? I mean, he talked to people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He really gets into the personal side through interviews. He talked to the parents, the kids themselves, the coaches.
Right.
Plus, and this is really important, he gives us this historical context, helps us see how we even got here.
Okay, so that mix of watching, listening, and history gives us a pretty full picture.
Exactly. It lets us grasp the sort of different layers of this whole competitive scene.
So think of this as your shortcut, folks.
Mm-hmm.
We're pulling out the surprising bits, the examples that might make you go, huh, yeah, and hopefully giving you some clarity without, burying you in detail.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's get into it then. This rise of competitive childhood.
Yeah.
Where did it actually start?
Well, it goes back probably further than most people realize. Sirlin traces it way back. Late 19th, early 20th century.
Like what?
Think spelling bees,
Yeah.
or those early efforts to make playgrounds more structured, organized activities.
Right. The first sort of organized stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Sirlin mentions even back then, there was this adult worry, especially in cities, about kids just running wild, unsupervised play. So they started pushing more towards structured sports.
And those early sports, they were often framed as teaching important, quote-unquote, American values.
Like teamwork, discipline.
Exactly. Discipline, following rules. Some reformers even thought sports could prep kids for, factory work in the industrial age.
Wow. Okay. But it wasn't only sports, was it? Sirlin talks about other competitions, too.
Oh, for sure. Things like music memory contests were apparently a thing. Even harmonica contests.
Harmonica contests.
Yeah. And spelling bees, as he details, they really became this, competitive educational tool. Individual competition just became standard in schools.
And then, jumping ahead a bit, you see these national student competitions popping up, right? With, corporate sponsors.
Yep. By the 1920s, that was happening. So the groundwork, the sort of infrastructure for this big competitive system was being laid.
Okay, so what really kicked it into high gear?
The big shift, Sirlin argues, happened after World War II. There was this real explosion in fee-based national programs for kids' sports.
Fee-based, that's key.
Definitely. Think Little League, huge growth. But with that growth came bigger costs to even participate.
So it goes from being maybe local, maybe free community stuff to these big national programs you got to pay for.
Exactly. And Sirlin points out that made it harder for the free local programs to survive.
Which leads us more towards today's environment.
Right. And it's only ramped up. Sirlin talks about the professionalization of youth sports. Soccer is a great example.
How so?
Well, now even volunteer parent coaches, just in the local rec leagues, often need to get actual coaching licenses.
A license? To coach 6-year-olds. That really tells you something, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows how seriously it's all taken now. And it's not just sports.
No. Sirlin mentions it spreading.
Yeah, into non-athletic stuff, too.
Yeah.
Child beauty pageants are a big example he uses.
When did they take off?
Mostly the 60s and 70s. And they copied the adult pageant structure, local, regional, national competitions.
So this competitive drive, it just permeated all sorts of kids' activities.
Pretty much, yeah. Across the board.
Okay, so that's the how it grew. Let's get back to the why. What's pushing this? Sirlin brings up Piaget's American question again here.
He does. If you link back to Piaget's observation, that American desire to, speed up development, it fits perfectly with this focus on competition. There's this underlying drive, this ambition, maybe, to see kids get ahead faster.
Just to clarify for everyone, Piaget's American question wasn't some formal study, right? It was more his observation.
Exactly. Just him noticing this distinct American tendency, sort of an impatience with letting kids develop at their own pace compared to what he saw elsewhere.
And Serlin connects this impatience to something broader, sociologically speaking, credentials.
Absolutely. He argues that in our kind of society, bureaucratic, hierarchical, your status, your prestige, it increasingly relies on credentials.
Like degrees, test scores.
Right. Performance on exams, degrees from the right schools. It becomes a form of cultural capital, as Bourdieu would say.
Okay.
And Serlin suggests it's not just having the credential, but the whole process of competing for them that shapes who you are, your networks.
So doing well in school, getting into those selective programs, it becomes super important for families.
And parents see this, right? They know their kids need these credentials, so they tend to lean towards what Serlin calls a protected adolescence.
Protected adolescence, meaning?
Meaning you minimize distractions, you focus everything on preparing for future success, getting those credentials.
So adolescence isn't so much about exploring or messing up anymore?
Less so, yeah.
It's more like a carefully managed resume building time.
That's a good way to put it. And the huge anxiety around college admissions just fuels it all.
Especially the elite schools.
Oh, definitely. Those crazy low acceptance rates, it just ramps up the pressure to start competing earlier and earlier, get that edge.
It feels like a feedback loop almost.
Yeah.
Admissions get tougher, so childhood gets more competitive, which makes admissions even tougher.
It really does.
Which brings me to this idea Serlin has. Competitive kid capital. What is that exactly?
Yeah, that's a really sharp concept. Competitive kid capital is basically the package of skills and experiences parents are deliberately trying to build in their kids through these activities.
Okay.
It's about giving them certain qualities that are seen as valuable later on. But what's interesting is Serlin hints that maybe the unspoken lessons,
Like what?
like learning how to handle adult expectations or deal with judges' opinions, subjective stuff, that might actually be the real capital they're getting, even if parents focus more on the wins.
Huh. Okay. So what are the main parts of this competitive kid capital? What are parents aiming for?
Well, first off, learning that winning matters. There's still a big focus on trophies, titles, being number one.
Even with all the participation trophies these days.
Yeah, there's that tension. You want everyone included, but competition, by nature, has winners and losers, and parents still value the winning part.
Makes sense. What else?
A really big one is learning from losing, building resilience, bouncing back.
That seems crucial.
Yeah, one mother in the book said it perfectly. Something like, the winning and losing is phenomenal. Life is really bumpy. You're not going to win all the time.
And you have to be able to reach inside and come back. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Isn't it? Then there's time management. That's key.
Just juggling everything.
Exactly. Juggling schedules, being prepared for tournaments, practices. These kids learn that early. One boy Serlin talked to compared soccer to, like dodging things to catch a train on time.
Huh. That's a great kid analogy for it.
Yeah. And then there's performing under pressure, adapting.
Different places, different crowds.
Yeah. Right. A noisy chess tournament one day, a quiet dance stage the next. It builds a kind of mental toughness, definitely.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. That's a life skill, regardless of whether you stick with chess or dance.
For sure. And the last piece Serlin mentions is self-confidence.
From performing.
Yeah. Getting up there, being judged, competing directly. It can build a certain confidence that carries over, like the example he gives of ballet posture helping a job interview later.
Right. So parents aren't just seeing these as hobbies. They're seeing them as like training grounds for life skills.
Pretty much, yeah. Essential development.
Now, Serlin also talks about different ways parents approach this. He mentions generalists and specialists. Can you break those down?
Sure. So generalist parents, they're aiming for a well-rounded kid. Lots of different activities.
Trying a bit of everything.
Yeah, the idea is, like Jeremiah's parents said, working different muscles. Let the kid explore, build a wider range of skills.
So it's less about being the absolute best at one thing.
Right.
And more about breadth of experience.
Exactly. Like Jeremiah's parents, they saw value in him doing both chess for focus, strategy, and soccer for teamwork, physical stuff.
Okay, got it. And the specialist approach.
Specialists go deep in one area. They're aiming for really high-level achievement in just one thing.
It sounds intense.
It often is. It usually means starting young, big investment in top coaches, relying maybe more on natural talent, The goal is often like national recognition, big awards.
That seems like a much narrower path. Maybe riskier, too.
It definitely can be. Serlin notes, realistically, very few kids can actually reach the absolute top that way.
Right.
The payoff of a national title can be big, sure, but the odds of making a whole career out of it, especially in sports, pretty slim. Even one specialist parent in the book kind of admits that.
So, high stakes, high reward, maybe high burnout potential, too.
Could be.
And Serlin seemed to notice that sometimes generalist parents start leaning specialist as kids get older.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point he makes, especially when college applications start looming. That need to show some really outstanding achievement in maybe one or two areas can push generalist families towards more specialization in middle school or high school.
Okay. Now, what about other factors? Like, how did gender and class play into all this? Let's start with gender.
Okay, yes, Serlin really digs into this. And it's complex. He shows how gender massively shapes which activities kids do and how everyone involved thinks about them.
How so? For girls, for example.
For girls, he identifies these like different scripts or frameworks. There's the graceful girl in dance, the aggressive girl in soccer, and the pink warrior girl in chess.
Those names paint a picture. What do they mean?
Well, graceful girl in dance often focuses on, appearance, posture, a certain kind of feminine performance. Competition's there, but maybe less raw, more about artistry.
Right.
Then aggressive girl in soccer is about physicality, toughness, sort of played like the boys vibe. Appearance is way less important.
So really different expectations depending on the sport.
Yeah.
And pink warrior girls in chess.
Chess is interesting because it's mental, right? So girls can be super competitive, really strategic, but still embrace traditionally feminine stuff. Serlin mentions girls in like princess t-shirts with rhinestones, just crushing it at the board.
Ah, love that image.
Yeah. So that framework seems a bit more flexible, maybe, with traditional femininity.
Fascinating. So these activities are spaces where different ideas of being a girl get sort of built up. What about boys?
For boys, Serlin notes you often see a clearer hierarchy of masculinity. Athletes tend to have higher status
than the others.
Boys in chess might get labeled nerds or geeks, although sometimes it's framed positively, like they're learning strategy, bonding with other guys. Boys in dance, though, they can still face a stigma, unfortunately, seen as less masculine, even though they're often incredibly athletic.
Wow. It really shows how stubborn those gender stereotypes are and how parents have to navigate them. And class, how does that fit in?
Serlin argues we need to look within the middle class. It's not all the same. He found that parents' choices about activities can actually shape different class-based versions of masculinity and femininity. So an upper middle class family might have different ideas about, say, what's proper for a girl in dance compared to a lower middle class family.
So even within that broad middle class label, there are subtle class distinctions playing out through these competitive activities and gender roles.
Exactly. It's layered.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What about the whole industry that's grown up around this, the business side?
Oh, yeah, that's huge. Serlin really highlights this. There's this whole organized world that, frankly, profits from parents' anxiety about their kids' futures.
Who's involved?
You've got coaches, private tutors, the people who run the tournaments, but also related businesses, special magazines, training software, all the gear and merchandise.
It's like a whole ecosystem feeding off that parental drive for a competitive edge.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And Serlin points out, interestingly, a lot of these coaches and teachers, they were often parents of kids who competed themselves.
So they know the mindset. They know how to market to those parents.
Right. Which also raises some questions Serlin brings up about potential conflicts of interest and also regulation.
Regulation.
Yeah, like coaching qualifications. He notes it can be surprisingly easy for someone to set themselves up as an expert coach without maybe having formal credentials. There isn't always strong oversight.
That's a bit concerning, thinking about accountability. And once families are in, the financial pressure keeps mounting.
Absolutely. As kids get better, move up levels, the costs just go up and up. Travel, fees, equipment. Parents feel like they have to keep paying or they'll hold their kid back.
So parents are investing in their kids' futures as they see it, but there's also this big economic machine humming along.
Definitely a major factor.
Okay, so we've talked parents, history, business. What about the kids themselves? How do they actually experience all this competition?
From Serlin's research, it seems like for many younger kids, elementary age, they generally enjoy these activities.
Really? Even with the pressure?
Yeah, and a big part of that is the social side. They make friends, hang out. That seems really important to them.
That's good to hear. And the trophies we talked about, they matter to the kids.
Oh, definitely. Trophies are big, whether it's just for showing up or for winning. They like having that physical symbol of their effort.
Mm.
But Serlin also noticed they get pretty savvy about it. They learn to tell the difference between, say, a participation trophy and a first place one.
They understand the hierarchy.
Yeah, like one boy told him something like, you can have 1,000,000 last place trophies, but that's not as important as having one first place trophy.
Wow. Kids get it.
Mm-hmm.
And how do they learn to handle the actual competing part? The stress.
They learn to read the situation, manage nerves before a game or performance. They figure out how they're being judged, whether it's by refs or dance adjudicators. They develop ways to cope with distractions, stay focused.
But it can't all be fun and games, right? Serlin must have found kids who didn't like it.
Oh, absolutely. He definitely found kids, even young ones, who said straight up they didn't like competing, that it made them nervous or stressed. But even those kids often seemed to grasp on some level that doing this stuff was maybe important for their future.
They picked up on the message.
Yeah, like that 9-year-old dancer he mentions. She wanted to be a dance teacher and a lawyer. She's already connecting it somehow.
So they're internalizing that link between these activities and future success, even if it's fuzzy. Okay, last point from the book. Why do kids eventually stop competing?
Several reasons come up. A big one is just time.
Too demanding.
Yeah, especially things like travel soccer. Huge commitment for the whole family, time and money. Kids also just, lose interest, or maybe their friends quit and it's less fun.
Or parents shift focus.
Right, parents might decide to invest their time and money elsewhere, maybe in academics or a different activity they think is more promising long term. Serlin also saw kids dropping out of chess, on average, younger than kids in dance.
Interesting. It's a reminder that paths change, even in this competitive world. Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up. What are the main takeaways from our deep dive into Serlin's playing to win?
Well, if we pull it all together, I think first you see these really deep historical roots in America. It's tied into our culture, our education system for a long time.
Right, didn't just appear overnight.
Not at all. Second, there's the huge driver of credentials and parents wanting to set their kids up for success in a competitive world. That's central. Third, we have this concept of competitive kid capital, those specific skills parents are trying to build, resilience, time management, performing under pressure.
Things learned through competition.
Exactly. And finally, you can't ignore the complex ways gender and class shape everything, plus the massive business side that fuels and profits from it all.
It's a really complex web, isn't it? And it seems clear that while, yes, many kids enjoy it and learn valuable things, there's also undeniable pressure and anxiety baked into the system for kids and parents alike.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Thinking about everything we've unpacked today from Serlin's work, what do you think are the real measures of success and fulfillment for young people growing up now?
That's a really good question to ponder. Definitely food for thought.